Hey BoLS fans, this is Caldera here doing BoLS Academy video number 2. Today we're going to talk about dice ethics and rolling dice faster, just to have it speed up a game. If you've noticed, across the country we've had a couple tournaments where people are not finishing their games. One of the reasons probably due to dice rolling, just because a lot of people don't know that that part of the game is slowing them down. So we're going to go over a couple things. The first thing I wanted to talk about was dice ethics. This is actually pretty quick. 3 things I wanted to go over were picking up your misses, allowing your opponent to see the result, and be consistent with your dice. As long as you're consistent, your opponents won't have a problem. So just to give you a couple examples, you have all these dice, and you throw them down, and you pick up your misses. I mean, that one's pretty easy to understand. The key thing here is just to let your opponent see it. That's the second part. That way, your opponent, there's no arguing. You let them see it enough time. When we both agree, you pick them up. And then the next part is being consistent with your dice. So, I mean, a lot of times when you're rolling down dice and they get knocked over and they get put onto, that's not a good example. They get put onto train sometimes, you have, not even dice. So the key thing here is as long as you're consistent. So like this one back here, if you're even remotely cocked, then the thing here to do is just at the beginning of the game, what I like to do is tell people, well, if it's at any point cocked, I just re-roll it anyway. And as long as you're consistent, then you're not going to have any problems. But if you keep it the same, if you're in play like Vegas, how it lands is how it lands. As long as you're consistent, you're good to go. All right, next couple of things we're going to do, rolling faster. I'm going to give you an example here. A lot of new Dark Eldar players are going to have this problem. Venoms, as you know, shoot out a lot of shots. They get 12 shots a piece if they're equipped the way that they're normally run. What I see a lot of people do here is they will have their dice bag and all their dice in one location, and then instead of having a set aside amount of dice that you know you're going to fire ahead of time, they always put them back in the general pile, then they have to count out their dice again. So what I like to suggest to people here, the best way to have this done is if you know you have 4 or more Venoms in your army, you're going to shoot them all at the same time. So you have those 12 dice in your hand at the same time. If you know what you're going to shoot, it's easier just to have them in your hand. Roll the dice, pick up how many you miss, and then roll the dice to wound like you normally would. And then, all right, you tell your opponent you got 2 wounds there. Now, I've kept these dice in my hands because I know I'm going to be using these same exact dice over again, instead of just throwing them in the back of the pile and having to count them again. So that's the Venom example. Second example is witches. So I have this squad of witches here. They're going to assault these guys over here, and they're going to have fun. Now, what I like to tell my opponents at the very beginning of the game is I always use the same kind of dice for every bit of my my witches. So I use my green dice here. There's always my power weapons. Never changes. These red dice I always use for my witch weapons. That part never changes. And then my black dice is just my general purpose dice. That's just for the regular witches. So that way I can say, all right, I'm charging. I get this many number of attacks. Pick up all those dice, roll them, and I don't have to, it's real easy to pick out which ones are which. And last part of the video comes whenever you're doing wound allocation. So say these guys, these Thousand Suns over here shot my witches. I'm gonna use the same exact template that I've been using. All right, I've got, say there's 9 in the squad and I take 10 wounds. Everybody's gonna take take 1 wound, and there's gonna be 1 left over. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna put out 7 regular wounds. I know 2 of my special weapons are gonna have to take 1, and one green one for my squad leader because I always use the same colored dice, and then the 1 floater I'll put on the regular guys. That way when you roll the dice, after a while, if you've been doing this all game, you just roll the dice and your opponent knows what you're rolling because you've been using the same colored dice the whole game. So that's pretty much it. If you guys got any questions or any comments, any suggestions of what you guys want to see, just drop us a line. Thanks.